You've probably seen headlines like this. This increases your risk by 70%. It sounds serious. It sounds meaningful, like something you should pay attention to. But without context, it's almost meaningless. And in many cases, we don't have that context. More importantly, the way numbers are presented shapes how we interpret them, more than the numbers themselves. A percentage can make a change feel larger than it is. A large number can feel important, even when it lacks context. And a precise figure can create a strong impression of certainty, even when our understanding is incomplete. In this video, we'll look at why this happens, how numerical information is interpreted, and how a small shift in perspective can change what it actually means. To see how this works in practice, consider a simple example. You might hear something like, "This doubles your risk." That sounds significant. Imagine your risk of developing a condition increases from 1 in 10,000 to 2 in 10,000. Now imagine instead that the risk of developing a condition increases from 1 in 10 to 2 in 10. In both cases, the risk has doubled, but the context is completely different. The framing didn't change, but your reaction probably did. In the second case, the outcome is far more common. This doubles your risk describes the change, not how common the outcome actually is. What changed wasn't the calculation itself, it was the context around it. Numbers give us a sense of precision. They make information feel clear, measurable, and grounded. And because of that, they can make the overall claim feel more trustworthy. But numbers don't carry meaning entirely on their own. Their meaning depends on the surrounding context. In the example, the change was the same in both scenarios, but the starting point, how common the outcome was to begin with, was very different. And that difference completely changes how we interpret the risk. This pattern isn't just about risk. It appears whenever numbers are presented without enough context. We tend to focus on the number itself, but what matters just as much is what the number represents. How common something is, what it's being compared to, how it's framed. And in many everyday situations, those details aren't always obvious. Instead, we're presented with clear, precise figures that feel easy to interpret. And that's where the presentation of numbers begins to shape perception. Once numbers seem clear, they begin to feel reliable, and that sense of reliability can influence how we interpret the information before we've fully examined it. Percentages are one of the most common ways numbers can influence how information is interpreted. For example, an 80% increase can sound substantial, but without knowing the starting point before the change, it's difficult to understand what that increase actually represents. A small change in absolute terms can sound large when expressed as a percentage. Large numbers can have a similar effect. A figure like 10,000 cases can feel significant, but without context, like the total population or how it compares to similar situations across time or regions, that number is difficult to interpret. Comparisons can also affect how we perceive information. Saying something is twice as likely to occur can draw attention to the difference, without showing how common the outcome actually is or truly representing the impact. Relative differences can feel more meaningful than they actually are when the context around the comparison is not clear. And when numbers are presented with technical language, they can signal expertise. Terms like statistically significant or data-driven can make a claim feel more reliable, even when we don't fully understand what they mean in context. None of these patterns are inherently misleading. They help us navigate complex information more efficiently. But they can also create a strong impression of certainty even without a complete understanding. And over time, these impressions don't just shape how we interpret information, they can influence how we make decisions. In everyday situations, these patterns appear in how numbers are presented. With respect to health recommendations, news headlines, advice about what to eat, how to exercise, or how to reduce risk. A number can make something feel more urgent or more reassuring. It can make a change seem significant or insignificant depending on how it's presented. And how a number is presented guides what we pay attention to, what we prioritize, what we begin to accept as normal. And over time, that can considerably influence the direction of our decisions. But a small shift in perspective can make a meaningful difference. Instead of focusing only on the number, we can ask, how common is this outcome? What is it being compared to? What context might be missing? Because understanding information is not just about the number itself. It's about how that number fits into the surrounding context and how that context changes what the number actually means. Numbers can make information feel more credible, but credibility is not the same as understanding. Numbers can make something feel significant, they can make it feel certain, and they can make it feel easy to understand. But in each case, interpretation plays a central role. What we perceive is not just a reflection of information alone, but of how that information is presented and ultimately understood. Often, clarity comes from having the right context for the information we already have. And in a world filled with numbers, clarity depends on how we interpret them.